Welcome to a new podcast episode. The global economy is increasingly shaped by geopolitical conflicts. In particular, the current conflict in the Middle East is creating uncertainty in global markets. Energy prices react sensitively, trade routes are under pressure, and companies are forced to rethink their supply chains. However, crises also reshape economic structures, and that is often where new opportunities emerge. So, what does this conflict mean specifically for Germany as a business location? And where might investors currently find opportunities? That is what we will discuss today. At first glance, the conflict in the Middle East may seem far away. Why does it affect the German economy so strongly?
Germany is deeply integrated into global energy and trade structures. When conflicts escalate in the Middle East, oil and energy prices often rise, and key trade routes become uncertain. This increases costs for industry and transportation in the short term, but at the same time, it accelerates two major trends: energy independence and more resilient supply chains.
Where exactly do economic opportunities arise from this?
Primarily in three areas. First, energy infrastructure. Europe is investing heavily in renewable energy, electricity grids, storage technologies, and hydrogen. Second, industrial production in Europe. Many companies are relocating parts of their production back to Europe, for example in semiconductors, mechanical engineering, or industrial automation. Third, security and defense technology. Investment in this sector is increasing significantly worldwide.
Looking at this from an investor's perspective, what would be two concrete pieces of advice?
The first piece of advice is to focus on structural trends rather than short-term headlines. Sectors such as energy infrastructure, grid technology, automation, and defense benefit in the long term from political investment programs. The second tip is to look at companies along the value chain. In other words, firms that supply machines, components, or key technologies, for example for energy systems, chip production, or industrial automation.
One practical question to conclude: if I am an investor or a small entrepreneur in one of these sectors, what should I pay attention to right now?
Three aspects are particularly important. First, monitor political investment programs. Many opportunities arise where governments and the EU launch major funding initiatives, for example in energy infrastructure or semiconductor production. Second, understand your position in the value chain. Companies that supply key components or specialized technologies often achieve more stable margins. Third, structure supply chains strategically. Companies that regionalize production and become less dependent on geopolitical risks will have a clear long-term advantage.
So the key takeaway is those who recognize major structural trends can also find opportunities in uncertain times.
Exactly. Geopolitical crises create short-term volatility, but they also accelerate economic transformation. And that is precisely where new investment opportunities emerge.
Thank you very much for the conversation and for the insightful perspectives. And thank you to our listeners. Haberlander GmbH is happy to support companies and investors in strategically assessing such developments. For more information on how to get in touch with us, please visit www.haberlander-GmbH.de.